Hello you and welcome here. This is my very first video on this channel where I will be sharing my passion for books, reading and living 1,000 lives. For this first video I thought I could show you a bunch of books I have recently read or will be reading so that you can get an idea of the kind of books I like and will most probably be talking about on here. Hopefully we do share some common interests. So first I want to talk to you about my recent obsession, Russian literature. As a teenager, I was everything but a reader. You would never have seen me with a book. I just never read. But what I did a lot of is writing. I wrote a lot. Sloppy, awfully bad written essays, but I wrote a lot. And in my writings, I was obsessed with trying to describe social norms and people behaviors. Trying to understand why people would treat each other the way they did. Trying my best and failing to formulate questions. Not even looking for answers, just trying to ask some questions. And now, as an adult, I find that Russian literature amazingly achieves what my younger self miserably failed to do: ask the right questions. So you will probably be seeing a lot of Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Pushkin, Turgenev, and other Russian authors on my shelves. I have also recently read some Honoré de Balzac and completely fell in love with his critique of society and human behavior. I can't wait to read more French novels. I am thinking Émile Zola for more social critique, or Victor Hugo for a more gothic vibe. Talking about gothic vibes, I have recently read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte and absolutely adored it. So I got myself some of her other books. And I also got Agnes Grey by her sister Anne and Wuthering Heights by her sister Emily. So yeah, the Bronte sisters. Looking forward to read them, compare them, and even read this peculiar murder mystery book about Charlotte I thrifted not long ago. One of the very first classics I have ever read is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Back then, I didn't even use proper tabs, as you can see. I love her writing and would like to read more of her. This is her Sense and Sensibility in the Penguin Clothbound edition. An edition I do not recommend. I mean, yes, it does look pretty on a shelf, but it didn't even last 10 pages before the cover started peeling. And the pages are too white and too thin. So if you're a bit rough with your books as I am, I would recommend skipping this edition. Anyway, today I see authors like Jane Austen, Louisa May Alcott, L. Montgomery as comfort reads. They are so warm and sweet and perfect for spring. Since Jane is my favorite, I like to call them the Jane & Co. As you can see, this Anne of Green Gables edition is an exhibit of how rough I am with my books, and why I mostly get them secondhand. There is another reason why I love these heartwarming books. Let me get a cup of tea and tell you about it. Something I always try to keep a track of every time I read a book is food. And the Jane & Co books are filled with delicious sounding food. The recipes you find in them are so mouth-watering, so I got some classic recipe books like Dinner with Mr. Darcy or the Little Women cookbook so I can recreate all the delicious sounding food. One of my favorite recipe books is the one from the world of Tolkien. Just imagine being able to cook and taste lempas bread. I mean, who wouldn't be obsessed? As a reader, I am always discovering new favorite genres. And I do not think of myself as a big fantasy reader, but I am a big fan of the Lord of the Rings movies. So I plan on doing a Lord of the Rings readathon along with The Hobbit. Yeah, this is Exhibit B for how badly I handle my books. I completely tore the box and spilled water all over the first tome. I know, that's horrible. But let me just show you this beautiful illustrated edition of The Hobbit. I love the paintings and can't wait to start the readathon. Some other fantasy series I am in the middle of are the Game of Thrones series by George R.R. Martin and the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. A genre I am definitely a big fan of is Greek mythology and Greek retellings. It's an instant buy for me. I love reading them and never get tired of them. I have yet to read the original Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer. I already got my hands on the English translation of The Odyssey by Emily Wilson and the French translation by Philippe Jacotet, which is illustrated by Julien Chabot. I plan to read both translations at the same time to get the full experience. This is my Wordsworth Classics English translation of the Iliad. Let's go over to my favorite reading chair and see what my currently reading pile looks like. First, A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. I actually already finished this by the time I am recording this audio. Then we have Ernest Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms, which looks to be promising and might be a 5-star read. I also started reading Dante's Inferno, again in both English and French. Just look at this illuminated French edition. It does not contain the whole poem, only the most relevant parts, but the paintings are stunning and immersive. It's a whole experience reading from it. Another genre I forgot to mention is nonfiction. Let me get Dostoevsky out of the way to show you this edition of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I love the gothic vibes of this edition, and it's one of my favorite books. If you've never heard of it, it's a series of personal writings by the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He never intended for it to be published, and I find it fascinating to read the unfiltered thoughts of a Roman emperor. Another favorite of mine is The Prince by Machiavelli. Such a short book that I heavily annotated. This pocket edition I got for not even €2 was mad value for money. So I got an English version in one of my favorite editions, the Everyman's Library edition, because it does deserve to be shown on a bookshelf. Luc Ferry, a French philosophy professor who is a master of pedagogy in explaining the different philosophical currents and their history. I love how floppy this book is. Are you floppy book team or stiff book team? Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I'll go clean up this mess and hope to see you in my next one. Au revoir!